Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, the Chancellor of the University of Cape Town, Dr. Precious Moloi Motsepe, members of the Executive of the University of Cape Town, members of the senior leadership at the University of Cape Town, distinguished guests, a very good morning to all of you. It is such a pleasure and an honor to be hosting you this morning. It's been a while since we have gathered here on the morning of SONA to network, to interact, to strengthen our partnership and friendship, to form new partnerships, and to talk about what's going on in the country, talk about what's going on the continent, talk about what's going on in the world today. We are very excited that as the University of Cape Town, we are able to resume this important gathering that we hold this time of the year. Some of you I have met in person in bilateral meetings. For some of you, I have met with your colleagues. And for some of you, we have not met, but we are going to meet. We, as the University of Cape Town, recognize the role that we play in partnerships, both academic and education partnerships, but also in our general diplomatic partnerships. We do not take our privilege as a top institution on the continent for granted. We see it as a responsibility to make sure that we provide the leadership that is needed, especially at times like this, when the world is fractured, when we are polarized. A colleague of mine said to me that, remember that when the world is at war, science is not. And I find this so important because they said this at a time when we were, as South Africa, we were having difficult relationships with this idea that universities have retreated. We're having difficult conversations about universities having retreated from playing more of their social role in society. That we have focused a lot on science being something that we just do in papers and journals. But we forget that it plays an important role in society. And in fact, we gain our societal legitimacy and social license to practice as universities when we directly impact society. And this is not something that happens by default. It happens by design, by intention, by effort. And dare I say that it also requires active investment of time like we are doing, investment of resources. And we fully recognize that at a time like this in the world, we need to step forward as universities to make sure that we maintain those partnerships, we build on them, we provide the spaces for thinking and allow the think tanks to come together. We make available our brain trust that we hold in our institutions across the world. We make sure that these partnerships are stronger. We allow for mobility of our students, of our academics, of our scientists and professors, and make sure that in spite of all that might be happening, we are able to contribute actively to advancing society. If we are not fulfilling this role of advancing society, socially, economically, and environmentally in a world of climate change and the time of climate change that we're living in, we will not be fulfilling our role, and our existence as universities will remain, and the legitimacy of our role will remain in question. Ours is not simply a narrow function of educating young ones, of doing research and publishing research, of just making evidence available. Ours is bigger than that. Ours is a role that has to contribute actively to developing society. And at times like this, we must contribute actively in making sure that we build bridges, we build connections, and we work together towards common mission. So we recognize this as the University of Cape Town, and as a result, we agreed that we need to bring back this gathering, make sure that we are able to share ideas, make sure that we are able to build these relationships. We don't only do it for ourselves as the University of Cape Town, but we also recognize that we are a bridge to other institutions of higher learning in this country and on the continent. We accept that responsibility and we carry it. So my hope is that the impact of our engagements this morning is not only limited to the University of Cape Town, but will reverberate in the sector of higher education in this country, and to the extent possible, we can also carry this across the continent. We do have the privilege of having a global presence as the University of Cape Town, global recognition with entities that are available in Europe, in the UK, in Canada, in the US, in Australia. Our global footprint is one that we appreciate, but it's also specifically designed to make sure that we are able to maintain the connections that we have, to build the relationships, to form these bridges. We want to strengthen these existing partnerships, and we want to build more. We are actively thinking about how to have better presence in Asia, in how to have better presence in the Middle East, and to also strengthen our presence on the continent itself. A lot of our partners and colleagues, when we speak to them, they say, yes, it's wonderful what you are doing as the University of Cape Town, but what are you doing for the rest of the continent? They say, yes, if we gave you funding, philanthropists will say to us, if we gave you funding to do work, we know you will do it and you'll do it well. But what role can you play to make sure that you include others and you carry them with you on the continent? So I do want to just make you aware and appeal to you as we engage that, yes, my responsibility is towards the University of Cape Town, and I am a guardian of the institution, but the impact of the work that we do is far-reaching, and we want to make sure that we continue to do that. I am hoping that the relationships that we build, our interactions, will not only benefit the University of Cape Town, but will benefit the country and the sector more broadly, and in the country, but also on the continent. I appeal to you to engage with us with recognition that there are many opportunities for us to make a difference if we just talk about it, think about it, and work together. There are many opportunities for us to make an impact. And after some of the meetings that I've had, bilateral meetings I've had with some of you, I'm fully aware that you also have access as the diplomatic community to so much more than just your embassies. You have access to your countries, you have access not just to the higher education sector, but other sectors in your countries that can help work with all of us. I find it so fascinating that conversations with your excellencies often do not limit themselves to education, but we can comfortably talk about business as well. We can comfortably talk about politics. We can comfortably talk about other aspects. And I always say to my colleagues, one of the things I like about speaking with ambassadors and high commissioners is that they understand the triple helix and the quadruple helix. We often say if you want to innovate and make a difference, you want the university together with government, together with industry and the private sector, and as much as possible also with civil society. When you bring those different sectors together, you are capable of achieving a whole lot more. But when I meet with ministers, our conversations are often limited mostly to governments and government conversation. But when I meet with ambassadors and high commissioners, I feel like you've got your fingers in many places. And I love it because it helps us to be able to think creatively and think broadly. And that's why we take the time to invest in building these relationships. Don't get me wrong, I value our engagements with our ministers. And we invest a lot of time in that. But I do think that you as ambassadors and high commissioners sit in the middle of all of these sectors and possibilities. And my hope is that as we build these relationships, we can unlock them and unlock them broadly. At times like this, for us, we find that it's important to make sure that we create hope for society. And I'm hoping that this morning also will not be any different. Thank you very much for being here. You're most welcome. I wish you enjoy this morning with us of conversation, and I also wish you to enjoy the rest of the day, enjoy the sauna and all that you will be busy doing in Cape Town. But for this morning, we are very pleased. Let me take this opportunity to invite our Chancellor, Dr. Precious Moloi Motsipe. She is our mother. She really takes care of us as the University of Cape Town. We rely on her to make sure that we are headed in the right direction. We are represented well in different spaces. She is our ambassador. She always responds when we call on her to come and represent the University of Cape Town. And she's here this morning as well. Dr. Precious Moloi Motsipe, thank you very much for being here. You're most welcome.
Excellencies, Vice-Chancellor, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the UCT leadership, and distinguished guests. I just want to thank our Vice-Chancellor as well as the leadership of the university. It's so wonderful to see you all. I know you work hard. Our university is not just the best on the continent because it's situated in this beautiful area of Cape Town. It's because of our staff, our Vice-Chancellor, the leaders of the university who work very, very hard to recruit some of the best students from the continent to come and study here. Excuse me, I've been traveling quite a bit, so my throat is dry. But I also want to welcome you all to the University of Cape Town. As the Vice-Chancellor has said, it is such an honor to have you all here. I'm really astounded to see so many of you that have turned up. I have not been to this breakfast last year, at least, and it's good to see that we still have this momentum. The relationship we have with you from different countries is really, really important, and we cherish it. I want to say what an honor it is for us to have you here, particularly during these uncertain times. We know that diplomacy and universities share a very, very important purpose, and that is to foster dialogue where polarization prevails and to advance solutions that serve the global good. I have just come as the Vice-Chancellor from the World Economic Forum in Davos. And I've also been to LA for the Milken Conference and been exposed to quite a lot of cold. That's why I'm a little bit of a dry throat. I attend most of these conferences annually. But this year, I left both conferences with a profound appreciation for the responsibilities that are carried by educators, leaders, and diplomats. In these conference spaces, where many countries convene, there is a palpable sense of worry about geopolitics. And at the same time, there was a lot of dominance around AI and how things are changing around the world. And that was for a good reason. The AI discussion, though, reminded me of my days as a young practicing doctor, when I would have to go through piles and piles of patient files and have to analyze data in these files in an attempt to reach an outcome that could save a life. What once took hours by myself and my colleagues searching for important data, AI can now accomplish in minutes. And what that means is that it frees doctors from the administrative burdens, and now they're able to engage with patients in the way that they were trained. They're able to focus purely on patient care. And immense possibilities come out of this good. Now, if you think about it, particularly in our underserved communities, right here in Cape Town, in Khayelitsha, in the larger part of our rural communities, people would finally gain access to world-class healthcare and expertise. Yet, in all this optimism, we cannot ignore the risks. While AI holds promise for improving quality and access in education, in health, in food security, it also displaces other industries. I was stunned to hear about call centers. The roles that were outsourced to developing countries like ours are now being automated, and that leaves thousands without work, almost overnight. And this is why the role of universities in upskilling the unemployed, people who will be displaced from their workplaces, is so crucial. But in order for us to do that, as the Vice-Chancellor said, it requires resources, it requires networks, it requires collaboration with industries that may reside in your countries that we can tap into. We must be deliberate in ensuring that whatever changes are happening now, we leave no one behind. It has to be inclusive. And we can only do this through deliberate and strategic partnerships. Our university, I'm very proud when I travel and meet people and tell them that I'm from UCT, I'm the chancellor at UCT. I'm proud that they recognize the university. It is held in high esteem. And again, I remind them it is because of the people who work at the university, from our lecturers, our executive, our ability to attract the best in Africa and in the world. But that requires resources to keep them here. And it doesn't matter how renowned an institution may be. There is no single university or country that can solve the world's challenges alone. Our collaboration is crucial. For me, what makes the connection between universities and diplomacy so powerful is the ability to translate knowledge into tangible solutions. Universities are safe spaces for honest, unofficial, deliberate discussions where we can tackle issues that formal channels often cannot. They provide the freedom to explore ideas, test solutions, and confront the challenges that shape our societies. But together with diplomacy, these ideas gain traction. We can turn insights into action, into advancing the Sustainable Development Goals, into promoting and ensuring that there is regional integration. This is the soft power that our collaboration brings, advancing knowledge in society and amongst all of us more broadly. On this closing note, while attending the Milken Conference, I was fortunate to meet someone I had read quite widely, but I had never met in person, Niall Ferguson. And in his reflections, he discussed how dramatically our world has changed and the responsibility we hold at this pivotal moment in history. He didn't offer any platitudes. He gave a stern reminder that the choices we make today will shape the world that future generations will inherit. There is an African proverb that goes, "When a father plants a tree, he will not sit in its shade." That is the essence of this moment. Our contribution today will leave a lasting legacy, not only in universities, not only in countries, but in the world. We have to nurture the seeds that we plant. We have to create real value for future generations. And this is where you as diplomats are so crucial. You guide and connect this institution to the country beyond our walls, along with our international students who come from over 100 countries. You ensure that the work that we do resonates far beyond campuses. We can be assured that the University of Cape Town has never been a passive observer of history, and we are not about to start now. We must continue, together with you, to confront uncomfortable truths, leaving no one behind through partnerships and collaborations. So, my call to you is that we should have these ongoing mutually beneficial partnerships for our countries, for our society, for our nations, and for our children and grandchildren. So thank you so much for being here this morning. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Vice-Chancellor.
I thought that this panel should be rather informal. It's not a conversation that needs prepared notes. And just to kickstart what should be a longer conversation. And I thought maybe the best way to do it would be first to go through our invited guests from outside university to give us some views on issues that I'm going to ask them about provocatively, so prepare yourselves for a bit of a challenge. Let me start with Ambassador Christoff, or High Commissioner rather. Well, recently we all followed your Prime Minister's impressive speech at the World Economic Forum. And one of the concepts that he introduced was this idea of variable geometry in international relations. So I wanted to have your views how this concept of variable geometry would be applied to science diplomacy.
Thank you very much for the question. Indeed, it was a landmark speech by our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, touched on a number of themes, and I think very much applies to the field of STI and collaboration, and where there may be geopolitical differences that may challenge countries as they align to look at different issues. What we know, and it's been proven over time, is that we can take certain issues out of that discussion and move them over into an arena where academics, institutions, subject matter experts can look at them in the clearest light, removed of the politics, and look at solutions that can be brought forward and make, as I think the VC had mentioned, just part of the role here is to make society better. Institutions play this role very well. And I would like to think that that's part of the gift of that particular community.
Well, thank you. I'm going to turn to you, Ambassador Kramer. I wanted from you a bit of an assessment of how you see the tensions between what used to be the ambition and what is affecting that type of collaboration that you have been able to put together, and now eventually can have ripple effects, not having as much collaboration with other parts of the world, including here in Africa.
Good morning, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you, Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor, and of course everyone here, because it's really nice to be here at UCT, and I think these sort of breakfasts and this outreach is really important. So thank you, and thank you for inviting me to the panel. Just to say, a first point, indeed, we have the Erasmus program, which is exchange of students and staff, and we have the Horizon program, which is the largest public-funded research fund in the world, actually. And the good news is, UCT is, in South Africa, the #1 benefitor of Horizon. There is at the moment, and I have the exact figures, Vice-Chancellor, close to like 80 projects happening in all your faculties. And there's a to the tune of about 14 million euros. And I'm only talking about UCT. There's a health collaboration with an additional 3.6 million because you are such outstanding scientists here. It's a really, really good collaboration. On Erasmus, UCT is in the top 5 of universities that either send students and staff to the European Union or also receive. So it's really a two-way street. This is a partnership. We're learning from each other. And I think that is something I wanted to mention. And of course, there is also member states, individual member states of the European Union that have their own funds. There's also ways to expand. We're looking also at historically disadvantaged universities here, but these are a little bit of sort of the basis of where we come from. Now, on a second point, which is something that Commission President von der Leyen is very keen about, is that all this academic work leads to something tangible for the economy. So she has put startups in the sequence of science, research, and innovation. As a matter of fact, she put startups in the job title of the commissioner as the first word, because she would like to translate all this into tangible benefits in the society. And we have examples of how that works, including here in Cape Town, where we have a program called Enrich in Africa, where startups can go for coaching, for monitoring, for mentoring, for advice on finance or how to protect your IP. So it's really something important. And the themes there are exactly whatever the startup does. So I just wanted to mention that as a twist to the whole research, innovation, and science discussion. Lastly, the third point, the European Union and South Africa have an outstanding partnership. Last year was momentous. Our leaders met about 5 times, and really, in this complex world, it's a reliable and predictable partnership, and that really counts for something. So there may be hobbles along the way, and there may be some deviations, but this is what the European Union member states have agreed to, and I don't see that ambition change at all. So that's just directly to your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Let me turn to you, Ambassador Eneström. Well, we know that Sweden ranks #1 in innovation in the European Union, and a lot of it has to do with the way the universities work with the private sector. Here in South Africa, there are examples from UCT, but maybe you can share with us how you see the geopolitical movements taking place right now, affecting directly or indirectly this very successful model that Sweden has pioneered.
Thank you very much, and let me also join others in thanking the Chancellor and the Vice-Chancellor for inviting us here and for inviting me to this panel. And I think you just want to say, first I want to say that, of course, Sweden is pushing very much within the European Union when it comes to climate change. I would agree very much with Ambassador Sandra that we are not lowering our ambition there. I think it's very important that EU continues to be very strong, the strong global actor it is when it comes to climate change, together with our partners in Africa and Latin America and North America as well. So yes, let me also mention that Sweden and South Africa has a very strong university collaboration, the Swedish-South Africa University Forum, which is a 35 university from both countries that work together, students, researchers, leaders, with the ambition to promote the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, something you are very, very much aware of. And of course, innovation is key for implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. So I think, and I just came from having my Deputy Minister of International Trade here, and one of the key areas that we discussed was innovation, entrepreneurship and innovation. Yes, Sweden is one of the most innovative countries in the world. So I think using the innovation and the digital skills in cooperation with other countries will push not only the cooperation between universities in different continents and different countries, but also the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Thank you. Let me turn to you, Ambassador Fonseca Filho. You just hosted COP30. Before that, the G20, the BRICS meeting, so the BRICS summit. So you have been at the center of a lot of the multilateral movements of late, at a time where the world is shaking in relation to the rules and norms that we were accustomed to. So there's a challenge almost in every front, from trade to climate to security to even arrangements that were long-standing such as, for instance, the arrangements on intellectual property because of artificial intelligence. And all of this, has implications from the perspective that the Global South is occupying much more space, and it's asking for even more space. And Brazil has been one of the leaders of this trend and this movement. So how do you see this affecting the collaboration that exists already between universities in the Global South? And how can we learn more from the Brazilian leadership in some areas, like, for instance, in aviation, where a university like the Federal University of São Carlos has been the pioneer to make something emerge like Embraer, which is very much used here in South Africa.
No, thank you. I'd like also to start by thanking the university for the invitation, Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor, and also to say it's an honor to be part of this panel chaired by you, Mr. Carlos Lopes. You are a reference for us in relation to development-related topics from your work at the UN and elsewhere. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here. I was very excited to come here because I am back in Capital. I was the director of the Department for Science and Technology for 8 years before going abroad. So I was I had very intense relationship with our community, and it was something very refreshing, I should say. Because as you have mentioned, Mr. Vice-Chancellor, when we are discussing among government, sometimes discussions are much more restricted in a way, and with boundaries. But when we move to the academic area, we can speak in a much more freer environment and feel more free to advance ideas and concepts. So I'm very happy to be here. As you have said, yes, part of our permanent position in regard to the international environment is to advocate for more inclusive, democratic participation. We consider that the institutions that came out after the Second World War should be updated in relation to the participation and voice of developing countries. And when we see in so many the kind of topics that today gather our attention, climate change, the financial environment, how to deal with that, development issues, we clearly see that developing countries should have more voice and participation to not only to be the objects of policies, but to participate. I should not replicate what Prime Minister Karin said, but we want to be on the table as well.
Not on the menu.
No. I was not going to say that, but yes. And one thing I'd like to say, and I think coming from a developing country, we have some different context as my other co-panelists. In Brazil, as you know, the public universities are public, government funded, so there is some challenges, some that are new, artificial intelligence, I'm not going to dwell on that, but some old challenges like funding, and also I'd like to say to overcome the difficulty of making the triple helix work. I think in other countries, as in Canada, for example, I, as the head of the Department for Science and Technology, I visited this area you have outside Toronto, I think Innovation Hub, where you have inside the university, you have representations from companies that immediately apply knowledge to industrial process. So that is something fantastic that in Brazil we have something that, but not to that extent. And in overall, the culture does not allow for that. There are different approaches, different motivations. I think this is maybe the most usual way. I don't want to prolong, but I was just remembering I listened to a lecture by Bernard Lewis, that was an Orientalist, and he said that is when military come together, they can relate because they have respect for each other, and when business people meet, they can also relate because they have profit. But when academic intellectuals meet, it's difficult because they have no respect and no profit. But but so when you try to put academics, government, and private sector, you have, I think the government has a role in playing this cohesive role. You have mentioned in Brazil, we have two very successful stories. The aeronautics industry, Embraer, that is today a world-class industry, and as you have said, also very strong operations in Africa and in South Africa in particular, and the industry of agricultural products, all the adaptation to different environments. We have been developing, and that has helped to make Brazil one of the major exporters of agricultural products, and we have been cooperating a lot with Africa. So just to conclude, and I'm sorry to prolong myself, that I have been here for 2 years and a half, and I have seen that our cooperation with South Africa has been developing. Of course, we have those same difficulties of funding, of putting the right people together, but I have been very happy to see that we have today incipient cooperation between some universities in Brazil, the University of Pretoria and KwaZulu-Natal. We hope to have also with UCT. But one thing I'd like maybe to flag the idea is that this cooperation, which is, especially in regard to humanity, is very interesting to compare experiences from both sides of the Atlantic. But maybe that could also be assisted by external funds. Maybe some kind of trilateral cooperation applied to academic cooperation. So I'll stop here, and thank you.
Thank you. Let me turn to you, Professor Visser, because you have been in the story of UCT from a research partnership point of view. When you hear these contextual issues that are defining the moment where we are, more challenging, and UCT has suffered from cutbacks in some of the funding for research. Partnerships that were long-standing are being challenged by differences in terms of what used to be the understanding of collaboration. All of that is an environment that basically calls for some modifications in the way we engage. There are all these dimensions, the climate becoming much more important, collaboration with the private sector becoming much more exciting, and opportunities are arising from a technological point of view, examples from Sweden, from Brazil, and many other countries. So how do you see UCT responding to this environment?
Thank you very much, Carlos. The important thing, I think, for a university such as UCT or anywhere, is to be agile in these circumstances. When a particular opportunity arises, to take it, but also to prepare the way. So I think what we see in University of Cape Town's planning is a redoubling of its efforts to be agile in regard to innovation and to be able to respond to the challenges in a way which brings together industry, the academy, and business. And that is one of the very important projects that our Vice-Chancellor has put on UCT's agenda, to be agile in regard to innovation and to be responsive to that. So that is, I think, one of the ways we have the Hasso-Plattner Institute for Design Thinking, and that kind of way of not approaching things in a preset way of thinking, but to be open to be thinking in new ways about the challenges that face us, is the way that we can handle these very difficult situations that we find ourselves in. So I think we have had so many examples where UCT has stepped up to the plate to do these kinds of things. So one of my favorite examples is the late Professor Bongani Mayosi, who saw a very important gap in regard to the treatment of myocarditis and rheumatic heart disease. So that is something which in the developed world, rheumatic heart disease is an old person's disease, but in Africa it's a young person's disease. And so he concentrated on that, and he brought together partners from all of Africa and also North America and Europe, and studied this. And then what came out of that, one of the things that came out of that, is that the treatment that had always been prescribed then was actually not ideal for anywhere in the world. So the World Health Organization changed the directions about how to treat rheumatic heart disease because of that cooperation, but it's an initiative from South Africa treating a worldwide problem, but especially an African problem where young people also suffer from rheumatic heart disease. So that is an example of a challenge that arose here that was addressed with worldwide partnerships, and then brought a solution which is not only valuable for us, but valuable for the whole world. So that kind of agility, I think that is the kind of thing that is going to take us through difficult periods such as where we are now, is to be able to adapt and find the solutions of the things that are valuable to Africa, and then very often one finds for the whole world as well.
Professor Ramugondo, I wanted you to be the last of this first round because everything has to do with transformation and everything has to do with social responsiveness. Then you have this collaboration that can be extremely sophisticated, like the examples of the European Union with Erasmus and all these different incredible initiatives that are about inclusiveness too. Same issue of inclusiveness that came from Ambassador Fonseca Filho, but more in terms of how in the international scene we can have more inclusiveness. And of course, you know, the examples that were given of collaboration by Professor Visser and also by Ambassador Eneström just reinforce that need for responding to the challenge that the Chancellor gave us, you know, social responsiveness.
No, absolutely. And I think what is clear here is that we've had long-standing collaborations with Canada, with the European Union, and with Sweden, and not so much from South America. And I think as we talk about seeking collaborations with Asia, we also need to add and remind ourselves of other parts. And I'm sure the Vice-Chancellor is paying attention to exactly this that is emerging. And not only South America, but the Caribbeans as well, and the African diaspora all over the world. It's important because you learn different things through different kinds of collaborations. There are lessons we can learn from the global South that we cannot learn from the minority world. And we shoot ourselves in the foot when we only look to one place. And the example that Professor Visser shares is a very important one, because before you have something to give the rest of the world. You need to be able to figure out what you're doing for those closest to you. And one of my favorite sayings from the late Prof. Mayosi was, what's the use of being a success in a sea of failure? So as UCT being regarded number one on the continent, it can be that we don't look around and ask ourselves questions about institutions around us, institutions on the continent that are not doing as best as they should. It doesn't serve us to ignore where there could be failures. Because in figuring out what holds institutions in our continent back, we do exactly the same thing as what happened with rheumatic disease and cardiomyopathy. So it's that mindset that we have to keep with us in order to understand true transformation. Because if we understand transformation in the way that Prime Minister Kenny is calling out, then we will see ourselves as needing to be dominant in order for us to succeed. It's a world where only the bullies win. It's a very short-sighted approach. When we look at those that are being left behind and figure out what holds them back, that's true inclusion. We can't be raising to be at the front with others falling by the wayside. What the VC emphasized and the Chancellor also spoke about is around how in doing the work of science diplomacy, we need to be very intentional about retaining legitimacy with society. And it starts with what happens within the institution itself. So, I mean, we've spoken about innovation and entrepreneurship as a mission that under our Vice-Chancellor it's becoming more pronounced. I have the privilege of leading a portfolio that is people, culture, and society. So, which means that you can do all of these things that you're thinking about, but if you don't center people, starting with the people within the institution, you're gonna get it wrong. Because if you don't pay attention to how people within institutions can be alienated from themselves, alienated from each other, and alienated from the institution, what's the point, right? When you begin to pay attention to what it is that drives the people within and connect them to communities where they come from, the technologies that you develop, the knowledge frameworks that you bring about will have resonance. Otherwise, you run the risk of technologies that you develop being rejected, knowledge frameworks that you develop being rejected, around anything, around climate change, anything that you think about. So that would be my 2 cents worth.
Thank you. I think it's very interesting to have this connection between science and legitimacy. So you have to be attentive to both, not just having science for science sake, but produce science, produce knowledge, but also make sure that you are doing it in a way that legitimizes what you are promoting. And I think I wanted to ask Professor Visser about one example that he didn't mention, but I think would be exciting for this audience, which is in astronomy and what UCT does in that field, because it's an example of incredible collaboration and partnership.
Yes, indeed. I think that is one of the really great examples. So the whole development of the square kilometre array in the Karoo is, of course, an international effort. And now partly it is because of the good geographic location that we have. Of course, there was competition for what exactly is the best location in the world, but fortunately the Karoo for us came through there. But the whole SKA project, the Square Kilometre Array project, is a truly international project. So it brings together 20 countries, 100 companies, and thousands of scientists. So that it's truly one of those operations where the whole world works together for something, and which one might think is a ethereal idea, you know, to understand the cosmos. But of course, the spin-offs from that are immense, and our understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe has been advanced so much by that particular cooperation, and that shows how one should not go alone. If you go together, as the old proverb says, that our Vice-Chancellor often cites, then you can go further. And with the SKA, we are truly going as far as one can go into where one can see. Yeah, thank you.
Well, from social responsiveness to the cosmos. Let me see whether we can have a bit of participation from you. We don't have much time. I know you are all pressed by time, but maybe one or two questions or comments from the audience before I ask the panel to just have a final say.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Ambassador of Lebanon. Thank you also, Professor Chancellor, for your speech. Your call for a mutually beneficial cooperation is well received. In my country, we have many universities ranking among the first 500 worldwide. I think universities not only provide a context for ideas and the service of diplomacy, but also they provide a bold venue for exploring bold diplomatic initiative leading to peace and security here and elsewhere in the world, and there are many examples. My question to Dr. Lopes, if you could please tell us a little bit, and we are here to know, about the Nelson Mandela School of Governance. What is your motto, and what kind of public servants or leaders you envisage to graduate in the context of South Africa or whole African continent and maybe in the whole world? Thank you.
I'm not going to do a commercial for the school. But I will just say that, the name says it all. It's basically enshrined in the idea that the values of Nelson Mandela are worth replicating in terms of creating a public service and public actors that are really ethical and espouse the type of values that Nelson Mandela embodies. But I will not say more, but I will definitely reach out to you and give you more. Let's have one more. Yes, please, at the back there.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm the ambassador of Colombia, Maria Mina, and I appreciate not only the event, this opportunity for the heads of missions, but the conversation and the deepening of the conversation. I will present two questions. Perhaps one is in terms of the opportunities for students to have exchange between universities. We have Colombian students very, very interested on studying in Africa, especially from the Afro-descendant diaspora. And Colombia offered a scholarship, very comprehensive scholarship, and we are trying to get more students from Africa to go to Colombia. But we don't have the same reciprocity with the universities here, so I will address this, so perhaps you can comment. And then my next question will be around traditional knowledge, how UCT address traditional knowledge linked to the different studies to connect also with these components of community and what identified Africa and most of us in Latin America and Caribbean from those roots from Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I'm going to ask Professor Ramugondo to answer.
Yes. Now I'm going to start with the last part because it's really something very close to my heart and many of my colleagues here. And it's often the case that when we are stuck, that is the only time that we think of indigenous knowledge systems and indigenous practices. And where we have had immense learnings, immense lessons recently, is around student mental health. Without going into the challenges that lead to student mental health, what we have begun to appreciate is how what Western knowledge may see as a problem can be framed differently from indigenous knowledge systems as a gift. And some of them are ancestral gifts. And how those gifts find expression comes in different ways. And sometimes that is the first time that a student would be diagnosed with a mental health condition. And we've had to draw on the custodians of these traditions where gifts are recognized as such and students are taken through a journey. And sometimes the journey is what we call ukutwasa. Some of you here who are from the continent will know what that is. We learn immensely from that. Translating that into the knowledge project such that one is recognized for those resources in academic terms has been one step forward, because it's one thing to solve a problem and another to see these resourcefulness as part of the academic project. So that's the work that we're doing. So we look forward to collaborations that involve students moving and going into exchanges. And of course, funding is also an issue for us. We very much like opportunities for students to also leave. Yes, it's absolutely great when we have international students on campus, because then our students get to have an international experience without traveling. But when they can also travel, it's something that we embrace.
Yeah, Excellency, I just want to add to your first question. In fact, one of my most favorite university presidents in the world is President Raquel Bernal, who is the president of Universidad de los Andes in Bogota. So I did attend a meeting there about 3 years ago, and we've engaged in a number of other meetings, and we've given a standing invitation to come and visit. But we are currently, the office that Professor Visser is leading, we are currently developing an agreement with them. One of the challenges, of course, that she has explained to us is that in Colombia there's a difference between state-funded universities and private universities, and some of the funding challenges that Ambassador mentioned already. So those are some of the things that we can talk about in terms of how to overcome, but they are not necessarily going to prevent us from forming those partnerships and signing those agreements. And we are very much interested in a collaboration in Colombia. I did experience an altitude sickness when I was in Bogota. Ended up with a lot of headaches, but yeah, no, we are certainly forming those partnerships.
Thank you, VC. Well, we are going to wrap up. Diplomats build bridges across borders. Universities build bridges across generations. And the collaboration between one and the other has to be fortified in different ways. So I wanted to ask you in 1 minute, our external guests, what is your best advice for us to fortify the partnerships? We can start with you, High Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lopes. So just picking up on what was said earlier, I just wanted to mention that Canada takes a very deliberate and structured approach to bringing in First Nations, our Indigenous people, in terms of knowledge and building it into our STI thinking. And one of the areas we do this in, and I'm thinking this just as we're coming off the back end of Indaba, where Canada has a large presence, of course, given the importance of that sector to our economy and our companies who work abroad. Just to say that in this particular area, I would like to think in terms of partnership with the sector being so important to South Africa as well, that we can find room to bring this in and share best practices in that area. So that's one specific area of partnership I think we could pursue.
Fantastic. We know that we have now demand for different minerals, different sourcing, different processing, different certification. Everything is becoming different in mining. So we need that collaboration. Yes, Ambassador.
Yes. Thank you very much. I just wanted to touch on what Professor Visser said, and we are very proud to be involved in SKA. There was original European Union funding, and I totally agree, it's a groundbreaking work here in South Africa. I think two things are important for enhanced collaboration. One is to look at true partnership, a win-win on both sides. It's really important to do that with an open mind and to look at us as Team Europe. You have at the moment, as we speak, according to my statistics, about 124 students from UCT in Austria, in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Greece. They go everywhere. And it is really important. And also, as Professor said, many international students coming here. And every single one of those interactions and of those exchanges is important. We can only learn from each other. So I think that is my advice to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Erasmus plus.
Erasmus forever.
Thank you. Please, Ambassador.
Thank you very much. I just also want to say that we are a proud partner of SKAO, and I was up in Karoo for the visit. It's really, really impressive. I wanted to build on the what I said in my first intervention on the Swedish South African University Forum, because I think that there are some lessons learned that we have done that I think it's good for this conversation. So one, first, to build trust, that we do the partnership beyond just exchanges, but we actually build a platform together. I think that's really key. Inclusiveness, to bring in, and this is also part of the SASUF, to bring in those universities that are not that are disadvantaged or historically have been disadvantaged, to build on the youth leaders, to bring them into the core, and to what you have said, scientific diplomacy. I always feel very comfortable when I talk about diplomacy. So I think scientific diplomacy is really important, and to bring in other partners, the business community, academia, government, but also the NGOs. And here where you have this really vibrant startups and innovation, as we spoke about before. And the last one, to build bridges between the silos in the societies, which is also brings in all these partners, because that's how we can push development, and that's how the academia, together with the other partners, can be a very important part of what you talked about, reaching the people, pushing the developments, and building bridges in a time with very strong geopolitical tensions. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You mentioned youth. You have in Sweden the #1 ranking in digital proficiency. So please bring that to us because we need it. We need more of it. We need more of it. Yes, Ambassador Fonseca Filho.
Thank you. The professor mentioned that South Africa has relevant academic interaction with European, and I would assume also other developed countries. And this is the same with us. And I would say maybe it's the same with each and every developing country. We think it's extremely important, strategic, the assistance and we receive from our developed partners, and to be able to partner with leading institutions in the developed world. But I have the clear sensation that maybe we are missing some important contribution that could arise from more cooperation among developing country institutions in areas such as biotechnology, neglected diseases, you have mentioned minerals, addressing common problems and issues. There are, as I said, budgetary constraints, because unfortunately education, science and technology are the first victims when governments face budgetary constraints. But I think, and I concur with my colleague from Sweden, we need new partnerships for this to happen. There is certainly a role for the universities themselves, of course, but also for governments, for the private sector, for civil society, coming together and making this happen. And I think this will add to the overall knowledge and to the benefit of our societies and for the world. When we are talking about combat neglected diseases, to make better use of biotechnology products, we are benefiting our nations, but also, I think, providing a contribution for the whole world. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very much the kind of cutting-edge technologies that UCT is also engaged in, so this is excellent. Well, Visser, I hope we corresponded to your expectations of having a discussion about partnerships. It ended up being much more richer than I myself was expecting because of the quality of the interventions in such a short period of time. So may I ask you a round of applause to our panelists. Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you.